So, welcome everybody to the second episode of King's Court. We got all our people in here. I'm doing it a little different because the intro was mad long. But thank everybody for coming in here, for being a part of this. And like I said before, this is just all about discussing, real stuff instead of the normal Facebook stuff or Twitter stuff, and you know what I mean. Just having real conversations with intellectually proficient people about whatever it is we want to talk about. So today, or this morning, or this afternoon, depending on where you at, we're actually going to talk about what does being pro blank. I mean, I guess since there's no white people, we can say black in here right now. But like even
and the white people
even
in here?
That. No, ain't no white people in here right now. If they come in, then we can always ask them. But
Right.
Even amongst ourselves, you know what I mean? Like I think that we should be able, or not be able to, but we should come up with some semblance of a definition of what being pro whatever means to you. And so, I think the first point is to define what pro-black or whatever means to you, and then we'll get into all the other stuff. And so instead of starting first, because I don't want to start first on this one, I want to hear what other people got to say. Anybody else want to go?
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Does anybody in here all right, so on the last one we got into like filling out like job applications and how it, or any application or anything where to ask your identity, right? And you mark whatever your option is, whether it be African American or other or black or whatever it is. Does anybody in here not select black, or do they prefer an alternative? I don't know anybody's cultural background as far as specifics go. Do you associate with maybe an African country or maybe a greater margin or piece of your ethnical breakdown?
No, it's African American.
Yeah. African American? You prefer? Do you prefer that term?
Yeah.
Or
so
black.
I understand what other people. or black. Yeah. But I understand what people talk about. But I'm from the area. Like I was born in America, and I'm black.
Okay.
So I'm African American.
Brent, are you on that same page?
Yeah, I agree with
that. I identify as black. You know what
black?
I mean? My father's black, and my mom's biracial. I mean, got some Indian in me, some white, but overall, just identify as black on the application.
But
okay.
To be honest, I identify as black all the time, but just to be funny on applications, I always put other, or sometimes I'll even put I'm a Latino just to be funny.
All right.
But no other people.
No, I be getting the jobs, but it's just funny. Like I just do that because they'll never. It's not like you'll ever know.
yeah, that's true.
Well, they ain't gonna know unless like they hit you for an interview and then you walk. Well, I mean, but then even then, I think that
they would never know.
I'm Latino. I just don't speak Spanish.
Fact, they would never know.
That's true.
They would never know.
Oh yeah,
you can't tell nobody that do not whatever you put.
Fact, they would never know. That is a fact. They would never. I never thought of it like you just be honest.
That's true.
I'm Japanese, boy. Arigato.
Hey, it's a passport too.
Yeah, you never know. You will never know.
So what? So Blake, what made you ask that? Let me ask you that.
I mean, not to say that I'm trying to cause any type of divide, but I think that a conversation does come off a little bit better as far as entertainment purposes, for sure, when there is some type of pre-division, right? If we all just agree with the same shit, then it kind of becomes, not to say boring, but I don't know, maybe less interactive. And then my second justification was I've been in a similar discourse that was a high population of what they considered African American people, but they had direct roots to Nigeria and Ghana and shit like that. And I think that there is a big difference between that. So as far as African American / black, not only will I mark that, but I'll circle black because I'm not African American in the English understanding of those two words. I've never been to Africa and I don't know nobody there. So I know people who have Nigerian roots, and even if they were born here, they could still go back with their mother or their grandmother and get hugs and kisses and maybe have a spot to stay. I don't know none of that shit. In my favorite words is I'm a descendant of slavery. My shit has been lost through, through a shipwreckage in cotton
I
fields.
like that.
So because of that, I'm black, y'all. I'm black, y'all.
I'm
black.
blackity
Black.
black.
Blackity
Y'all.
black.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think that I look at African American and black as being similar, because when you say African American, I think of where you descended from. Like, it's different. Saying African American is different from saying something like Nigerian American, for example, or Ugandan American. You know what I mean? And I think that you can look at all of us and say that we are descendants of African. We are descendants from African ancestors. You know what I mean? We come from there, and even though we don't know where we come from, and our history has been lost, and we did have to create our own culture. I agree with all of that. I think that saying African American is just as pointed as saying black. I think black is just the culture that we have created as African Americans. Therefore, we now self-represent as black because we had to create a different culture. You dig what I'm saying? And so when I see African American, I'm like, yeah, because ultimately my ancestors are from Africa. Do I know where? Absolutely not. Do I want to know? Yes. Like, Africa, I think it's AfricanAncestry.com. You can go on.
Will
there.
You ever know? Do you believe in that? But do you believe in shit like that? Though?
I mean, I don't know.
Come on, man.
I'm not gonna say that I ain't gonna say that I do because I haven't tried it. But I'm not gonna say that I don't, because then at what point do you tell yourself that you've lost all hope of finding that type of stuff? You know what I mean? And so, like, I'm not gonna say yes, like, yeah, I agree with that 100%, blah 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 blah. But I'm not gonna say that it doesn't work. I'm gonna say that the jury is still out for me. I don't know yet. You know what I mean?
I think
until I try it, you know.
I think realistically, you'll never know where you're from.
You think?
Me too. I agree with that.
You think we as black people would never know?
Yeah, you'll never know exactly
You'll
where
never
you're
know.
exactly pinpoint. Nah.
So
Ever.
okay, so then
All right,
how old are you right now?
The term African American actually holds more weight if you don't know exactly where, and you're ascribing it to the entire continent. You get what I'm saying? So we're saying black. I agree with that, but in saying African American, we're not saying that, oh, you are Nigerian American. We know that just as much as, well, not just as much, but they have a direct lineage path back to Africa. We may not know our lineage path, but based on what we look like and who we are at this moment, we can say that we have that same.
We're African.
You know what I mean? We can say that we're that.
Can I devil's advocate that then? And if you're gonna go vague on saying I'm from Africa, fucking the largest continent or up there, right? Big ass continent, bro. You could argue that every human being is African American, right? Because we do know the origin of man.
I was
comes
just
from
about
there.
to say that. So do you
Man.
know everybody from Africa or originated from Africa?
No, you can't.
Go ahead.
Why?
Because now you're allowing the one drop rule to take place, and I don't like that shit.
Yeah.
So
That's a real thing, though.
but that doesn't matter. So if you see somebody that is German and he could tell you that way back in the day he had a black grandfather, that makes him African American. No, it doesn't. He doesn't ascribe to anything that has to do with that at all. He doesn't.
You're talking about a white person?
Yeah. So no, I wouldn't even do that, because the one drop rule was to oppress us. I'm not gonna allow that to take place.
Are there white Africans?
Yes, there are. Then they can be African American. Charlize Theron is African American, but that's because she's directly from there.
And that white man, so like, he probably has better odds of tracing his heritage back to fucking Celtic backgrounds. He's like, okay, I'm Irish this, and then boom, once you get that more recent pillar, then that's where I think it should stop. The fact that we scratch ours through slavery is why I stop at black and refuse to go to African American.
To Africa, because, and I agree, not to interrupt, but I agree with that as well, because I feel like the African American part of it, even though I do agree with both sides of this argument, even though it's not really an argument, I do agree, but I feel like the African American title kind of takes us away from a lot of the stuff that we're due here, like in a really roundabout way, because at the end of the day, we're attaching everything of ourselves, even though we created everything here, we're still attaching ourselves to over there.
That if they
Versus just
gave
being
out
like, we're
reparations
here, we're
tomorrow,
black, we did this here.
So it's
Black
like
people from here
chains
did
still
this here
being
from
honest.
slavery here. So yeah,
That's a good way to think about it too. So what? Just being American?
I'm
no,
just
a black American.
A black American?
yeah.
100%. If they gave out
Because we
reparations
created that
tomorrow,
culture.
Nigeria boy don't get
Right.
nothing.
There you go. We created the Black American culture where our ancestors created the African American culture because they came over here from Africa.
Yeah.
It stopped somewhere though, and we
Yeah.
we became culture.
That part.
Good job, bro. Good job. I like that. Black American.
I guess.
But you don't like
Again,
Phil.
though, I agree with both sides. Though I'm in the fence. I'm on the fence as far as that. But that's just my
Phil don't like that
overall
shit.
thought
Phil don't
towards
like
it.
that shit.
No,
Phil don't
I
like it.
agree with what y'all are saying, but I think that I think that when we're talking about black, to
You
say
don't like we
that-
take the word African out of there.
I don't think that we should take the word African out of there, because then in essence we're doing what they wanted to do to us anyway, which is forget
Strip us of our
and say
culture.
that we have created something new to begin with. You know what I mean?
But it's
I'm
true
not
though.
saying- I'm not.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'm not saying you ain't right, Phil, but he right too. Like, just like what I said, you'll never know where you really came from. All right. So like how I identify myself as that, I said African American at first. You feel what I'm saying? Because okay, I'm still gonna associate myself with my ancestors, but I was born here. You feel me? Like I don't know shit about Africa. What Bo said. You feel me? I don't know nothing. I ain't never been there. We done did research. Man, when I had the fucking Black History books and how like it still don't grasp, like, you know what I'm saying, like what I done here though. You feel what I mean? My roots and my seeds are planted here. I don't know nothing about Africa. I do like the Black America thing. You feel what I mean? Because I do feel like we are a culture and we are the ones that are gonna make the change, not them. You feel what I'm saying? Because they didn't make the change, bro. White people made the change for us.
I agree.
We had a voice in there with the Dr. Kings and the Malcolm X's, when even Roses. You feel me?
I agree.
We are the ones. Look at the revolution right now. You feel me?
That black people picked up the baton from something else.
There you go.
I know who fucking Mansa Musa is, right? And I consider myself an attachment to that. But more so, I consider myself an attachment to Malcolm X. You know what I'm saying? His parents was out here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with all that. But then my question is, so
Who from Africa did something for you, Philip?
no, I mean they did everything without Africa being what Africa was and what happened.
Your generation, I'm talking about, your generation, like I don't know nobody who impacted my generation from Africa. But I know some people that was from America that were Black who impacted us.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure.
And we're a different breed of people, bro. We were curated.
We are.
They used to fucking, this one is the strongest and this one is the strongest.
Yeah, you can't
Make
just do that
them
to
have
them
a baby.
together.
You know what I'm saying? That
gotta
was
fight me for that strong
science
shit.
experiment. That's a science experiment, bro.
So
Africans,
through that
you got-
mixture, that's where through that mixture of all of that, all of the shit that happened to us through slavery, and we create, because like
that's a whole new people.
From the point of slavery, they created a whole new version of people. And although I agree that we are African Americans, because I'm on both sides of this, but our culture pretty much starts from slavery, because that's where we started with all of these great inventions that we come with that impacted the rest of the world. Although we have been doing that forever from the beginning of time, our direct descendants come from after slavery. Like, even though it can go research back.
Yeah,
just like everybody else can, because everybody can research back.
Mm-hmm.
But our stuff directly, in my opinion, starts from like
that part. It's a tie-dye shirt, baby. Once you tie that shirt, it's a tie-dye shirt now. It ain't no more. It might remember being a white t-shirt or a black t-shirt, but once you fucking tie-dye that shit, it's a whole new thing.
Yeah.
What you got to say, Brent, before I go?
I'm just more suspective, man. I just left the UK where, I met a lot of Nigerians, a lot of Africans who know their heritage, who know where they're from, Ugandans, and this is a whole different dynamic. We are descendants of the slave, pretty much. Taylor is definitely a slave on her name. all these names. You know, we all mixtures.
Everybody in
some-
here, bro. Washington, Barnes,
Wilkerson.
Washington, Barnes, all these, none of these are original black names at all. Clearly.
That's a
They
fact.
are. They are.
But yeah, I mean, I would say Black American. I mean,
Everybody in here got a slave name.
absolutely.
That's a fact.
I agree with that, but that's not to say. So you're discounting the time before they came here, but you're counting the time that they got here, is what you're telling me. And
No,
then
it was a curation of a new people.
After.
And no, hold on, because I was getting there. So you're saying what happened to the people once they got here, and then the curation of the people once we got here.
But we ain't them though, Phil.
Now hold on, because our slave names are given names. Those aren't our actual names, and that's part of the process that was necessary to take where we came from away from us. You dig what I'm saying? And so the curation of people, the curation of slaves to make bigger, better, stronger, faster
Superhumans. Superhumans.
slaves,
There'll be some superheroes.
So
I like that.
in them doing that to us, that was still slave on slave, and therefore it was still all African. There were some slave owners that did rape and do things like that to just for basically for power purposes. But if we're talking about making the strongest slaves and things like that, all of that is still African. I get what y'all saying, and I don't disagree that Black culture is the culture. Like Black culture affects the world, which is how you know Black culture is the culture to have right now. You know what I mean? As a matter of fact, one of my homeboys actually just sent me German artists who are recreating or rapping over Black songs. You know what I mean? Like, so I know that our culture is far reaching. What I'm saying in terms of African, why I don't think we should drop African is because essentially what we're doing is, I agree that we created something new and something to be copied and something to be revered, but at the same time, all of that came from somewhere, and I'm not necessarily for, just because I don't know just because I can't pinpoint it, and I understand that other people can, but just because I can't pinpoint it, therefore now I don't have to say or I don't want to say that is that. You get what I'm saying?
Hold on.
Trip.
I get exactly what you're saying. Hold on. What I'm saying, I want to say right now is, that's why I'm on the fence about the subject. So
you
I'm
say what
on
you
both
said
sides,
earlier, bro.
But
you said what you said earlier.
Like we got to deal with the situation at hand, because we got to deal with we created once slavery came here. Once we were involved in slavery,
we got to disassociate ourselves away from African.
We got to deal with what we got to deal with what they have handed us and what we created here before we can go and try to associate ourselves with Africa. So that's why I'm on the fence about it, because we got to deal with this now, and then after we deal with this and get what we deserve here as Black people, then we can now reconnect with our African roots and go full circle with it.
100%.
We got to become our own culture first, though, because they gave us our culture. You feel what I'm saying?
Phil. All right, look, there's an old some fucking I don't know, philosopher or whatever has said some weird little question of, if you have a ship, right? A fucking, I don't know, like a sailing ship, a slave ship. I'm gonna run with a slave ship. You got a slave ship, right? And the front end get crashed into, and they rebuild it, and all of a sudden they remodel, start doing the floors, they start changing the poles and the plumbing and and all the pieces of this ship, right? How much needs to be changed? And if you were to change all of it over time, over this ship lasting, let's say 100 years, and you keep anything that breaks, you replace it with new items. At what point does this ship no longer become the ship that it was once built 100 years ago? If any piece, it could be a house too, right? Whatever it is, right? But if I replace the windows of the house and I start switch out the drywall and build this room and demolish this one room, granted, maybe it's still on the same plot of land, but every element of that home is a new thing. It's nothing, none of the original pieces are there. Is it still that same ship and or house, or is it a whole new thing?
If I was to have that situation occur, right? So say like that same ship, and I got it, and I knew that it was a slave ship, and they just wanted me to refurbish the slave ship, like you're saying, refurbish it and make it into something new so that it is not what it was, I would tell them that I'm not going to do that either.
No, I'm saying hypothetically, if it happened, it's like, when does it become
Uh,
not the same original
when-
ship no more? If
I
you
think
swap
when
out
the-
every
when-
piece.
And my
when people forget, when the last person who knew that it was a slave ship forgets that it was a slave ship.
So then it's just it's a mental construct, because physically every part on here is not an original part.
I
it's
was
different. Or what if or change it? What if they took a slave? What if they took the slave ship and deconstructed the entire slave ship and built a house out of it? Is it now still a slave ship?
Correct. Yeah, that.
Hold on, wait. Did they build it using slave ship parts?
Yeah, they
Yeah,
used,
but
they
you
just
made a
deconstructed
house.
the entire ship, all of
All
the
the
wood,
wood,
and created a home out of it.
built a house out the motherfucker.
I
Is
don't
that
want it.
house
Is it
a
still a
ship or a
slave ship?
house?
I don't want it.
I know, but we're not talking about what you want. We're not talking about desires. We're talking about what is it? Is it still a slave ship or is it a house now?
No, you've turned it into something new, but
That's the whole point.
But what I'm saying is, it's still, and so that's why I said you still look at it and you still know that, like, yo, that house. So that same thing that you're saying, the descendants of the people who came on that ship, you tell them, or for some real weird way, they know that something was carved into that to let them know that that was the slave ship that their ancestors came on. Do you think they would still they would want to be there? No.
Yeah, so you could talk about it. You could talk about it, but anybody who, look, bro, the mail is at my house. Meet me at my house. I could tell you once upon a time this was a slave ship, but now it's a house. And that's what I'm saying about this whole Black American thing. Once upon a time, sure, we can talk about it. I'm not saying totally distance yourself from African culture, right? But as far as what this is today, this is a house. It's no longer a ship.
And now and what I'm saying is, let's take control of the house first. And then after we take control of the house, we can let everybody else know in the world and re-educate everybody on the fact that this is actually a fucking started off as a slave ship.
As a slave ship, which is tight.
And I get what you're saying, but
I like that.
I think what I'm saying is, instead of having to re-educate them as to what this used to be, we should never let them forget what it once was. You get what I'm saying? And so, like, instead of being like, oh, like, at a certain point, like, this used to be a slave ship, but look what we done turned it into now. I think instead of saying that, I think that we should actually say more like, I guess it's kind of similar. So I think I'm arguing like the same point now that I'm thinking about it, because I think that if you take that slave ship, you break it up and you build a house. If people see it, people are going to see the house, but the people who know that it was still a slave ship are going to know. And then that's where the re-education comes in, I guess.
My whole point this whole time, they're like, the people are like a lot of people, their whole point of view is get over it. They're like, and I'm not saying to get over it either. I don't agree with get over it, but their whole point is, it's like, why cry over spilled milk? I get it. So I understand it's still my milk that was spilled, my nigga, and I don't got no more milk. So let's take care of getting some more milk and then clean this mess up before we can just continue crying about the spilled milk. Because in the process, we ain't drinking shit. Like, it's still a house. Like, we gotta live in this fucking house. So instead of paying rent in the house and worried about the fact that it was once a slave ship, let's take control of the house, and then we can redirect the energy however.
We can swag that motherfucker out and then put a picture of the old slave ship in the house. You know what I'm saying? We could remember it all day.
We could rebuild the motherfucker. We could take control of this shit now that we own it and turn it right back into a slave ship and go build some other shit and leave that as a monument. Like, no, you motherfuckers try to turn us
just
y'all made us a slave ship and then turned us to a house, and we turned it right back, and now we own all of this shit. And here's this monument, just like you motherfuckers been having all these other monuments about all this other bullshit in the world. Here goes this monument of this motherfucking slave ship that you niggas tried to recreate.
Yeah, but then I think that's not losing. That's not getting away from saying African, though.
Yeah, that's why I said I'm on the side.
Yeah, that's why you were saying you're on both sides. I get it. Okay.
Exactly.
I get it. That's why you were saying you was on both sides of it. I get it. Yeah.
And then more. I think the culture is hella important too. I want to ask Brent. So you said you were in UK and you were rocking with a bunch of Africans, right? Of different specific countries. or bump shoulders with through my life, I've noticed an attachment to
Wait, you breaking up real bad.
a white man attached to black culture. And what I mean by that,
Blake, you breaking up real bad, homie. What does that mean?
I see a white man or Latino man attached to black culture in the way that when family events Brent was probably rocking with, they may love that Kendrick and that Drake or whatever, but when they go to their family events, they have a heritage to attach to. All we have is black culture. I don't see it as a distant. I don't look at it like from overside of the fence, like, oh, what's the blacks doing? No, I am the blacks.
I am the black.
Spanish people have both. And since they have both, their origin culture is that Spanish culture. And I feel like Africans look at black culture in that same light, where they can go home and have a native tongue, if you will.
I do too.
My native tongue is the language I'm speaking right now. And I'm asking ultimately, because I want to see what your perspective was from dealing with those African people. Did they seem black or did they seem African?
Seem very African. They did rock with some of the black culture, some of the music. UK has their own, they created their own type of vibe of music. You know what I mean? Nigerians are definitely, especially like the area of Brixton, the culture is heavily ingrained as far as they still cook the same food, they still serve the same type of things. From the various women I talked to, they still spoke in their native tongues. They still, talk to their parents in their native tongues in some of the conversations. It's still very much African over there in the UK. I call it the other motherland. Like, I want to move over there, personally. But yeah, it's a whole different vibe. It's a whole different vibe. You got the culture over here. You got what we built post-slavery, during slavery. But over there, you still have the roots. And they're still implementing those roots, even as they're in a different country, the UK. But it's the same side of the pond. So maybe that's why they're maintaining the originality, of African.
Because you don't have that severed of slavery.
No.
Yeah, there's not a severance over there. So it makes it easier for them to embrace all of that. Like, they still get microaggressions and things like that, but it's not nearly on the same level as black people get here.